How does reciting the UCMJ, how is that, which is the Uniform Code of Military Justice? We basically repeated the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and they're saying that's in violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's absurd.
And then this morning, Defense Secretary Hegseth took to social media. He highlighted a picture that Senator Kelly had put up of his naval uniform, this one here, with his medals, and there are a number of them. And Hegseth claimed that this was actually a uniform violation, that he was wearing the ribbons and medals in the wrong order, and that therefore when Kelly, and this is in Hegseth's words, was called back to duty, his first order of business would be a uniform check, which just seems extraordinarily demeaning. It's also
creepy.
It's also possible that if that's the picture that Kelly put out, maybe it's in a mirror and therefore it's just reflected. Just a thought.
Oh my God.
Greg Brower, you served in the Navy and had a number of positions there. Just your thoughts here on this matter, where these are, Kelly's the face of it, but the other lawmakers as well all served with distinction, and now they're in the crosshairs of the president and the Secretary of Defense for simply reminding officers what their obligation is. The obligation is to Constitution, not the president, and they are not supposed to, they can't follow illegal orders.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I served as a Navy officer before I became a lawyer, and in my initial training, and this is true for all officers and enlisted personnel, in initial training, you learn that your duty is to follow lawful orders. That is a fundamental tradition of our military in this country. And so I think veterans all over the country are watching this, and they must be confused as to what the controversy is about, because we all learned that. We all lived it as soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines. And we, I think, as Americans, understand that makes sense. Following lawful orders is what the military is all about. And so this accusation that somehow the fact that the senator reminded military personnel of that duty is wrong or controversial in some way, I think is confusing to veterans all over this country.
Greg Brower, I just want to go back to the Comey and James ruling that Lindsay Halligan wasn't properly appointed as a federal prosecutor and had no authority to indict. Are there any questions or consequences that you're looking at there from her perspective for taking those orders, I guess, from the president, or following through with this when it was so clearly, is it fair to say, legal malpractice, or how would you characterize it?
Well, it's unprecedented and bizarre, frankly. In terms of consequences, I think, clearly the White House is in full support of her, as is DOJ leadership. But her state bar, I don't know where she's admitted as a lawyer, but state bars in other situations have looked at administration official conduct and in some cases have not only questioned it, but some lawyers have lost their bar licenses based upon their conduct while serving in government. I'm not predicting that would happen here, but I think every lawyer working for this administration needs to be concerned about their conduct in terms of the ethics relating to their conduct, and they need to be concerned about making sure they're following the ethical rules that each state bar imposes upon them. And so without predicting whether there's an issue here necessarily, that could be a repercussion. A state bar could look at this. But I think more importantly, the judges have stepped up, and as I mentioned earlier, I think it's now 4 judges have said this is not a lawful way to appoint U.S. attorneys, and that's posing a very real practical problem for DOJ. Not only are they losing these cases are being dismissed, but it poses a problem for all types of, I'll call them ordinary cases coming out of these U.S. attorneys' offices. Can they be properly indicted with these unlawfully acting U.S. attorneys' names on them? Judges so far have said no, and that's just a problem for the administration of justice in this country right now.
Former FBI Assistant Director, former Legislative Counsel of the Department of Justice, and Navy veteran Greg Brower, thank you very much for coming on this morning.
Yeah, we thank Greg for his service as well. John Heilemann, you wanted to weigh in here on this, what we've seen here, the targeted attacks from the president, from the Secretary of Defense towards Senator Mark Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, John, I think there are three things worth saying about this whole situation as it not only unfolds but escalates. And the first obvious thing, and I feel like a little like what Mara did in the previous question, which is just to remind everybody here, as Pete Hegseth starts calling these Democrats the seditious six, it's really dangerous rhetoric, and it's especially in the MAGA movement where accusations of treason and traitorousness, unlike some of Donald Trump's personally odious attacks on people, when you escalate to that level, it does start to give license to people to engage in political violence. And I think that these Democratic Congress people, Mark Kelly, Senator, are right to be taking very seriously the questions around security. The second thing is, go back to that tweet. If we can put up that tweet that Kelly sent out where he's dressed in his airman's gear. He's like, I mean, this is the thing that happens. No, not that one. The tweet of Kelly where he looks like a stud in that military in his and he's wearing a flight suit.
John.
It's like this is a classic Donald Trump thing, right? You go after this guy. Here's a guy, Mark Kelly, who's got probably almost certainly has presidential aspirations. Is there any better campaign ad for a guy who wants to run for president than having a context in which you can post pictures like this? This is the thing Trump does all the time. He singles out people and elevates them in the process. This is, I'm sure Mark Kelly would rather not be elevated this way. But the reality is that the further they go down this path, the more they're going to build Mark Kelly up as a national figure. And then the third thing I'll say is that we are building towards a very dangerous moment here as they continue to, or not even just a dangerous moment. The dangerous moment is already there. The possibility of Trump asserting, as Joe keeps saying, that he can send military anywhere he wants, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines into any American city. The question for me is, when do we get to the point where active duty senior military officials start to speak up? Because they have kept quiet when Trump gave speeches at Fort Bragg and West Point that a lot of them were upset about because they were so partisan and political. They have kept quiet in the face of the discussions of sending in the military into places like Chicago and Los Angeles and other places. But I think there's a moment that's coming, and I think a lot of people in the military recognize this, where not just retired, but we're current active duty senior military who are clearly, quietly troubled by everything that's going on with this are going to face a moment of truth where they're either going to have to speak up or they're going to have to end up obeying orders that are at least questionably legal and possibly blatantly illegal. And that's going to be a big moment in this country. We haven't seen anything like that from active duty military speaking out publicly really in our lifetimes.
Yeah, we seem to be barreling towards that moment indeed. And John Hammond's right to underscore the danger here. We have seen the president's words inspire violence in the past.
Yep.
And also, just on the politics of it, conservative podcaster Eric Erickson said something very similar to what Hammond said. We could see it here, that it feels like amateur hour has returned, including elevating the statue of Senator Mark Kelly, even as Democrats, in Erickson's words, have been flirting with Gavin Newsom. He clearly thinks Kelly a more formidable opponent. And Mika, it's as I wrote last week, that the chaos of the last month or so, the Trump 2.0, it seemed like a fairly well-oiled machine there for a few months. It has gone off the rails and now is very reminiscent of the chaos of the Trump first term.
Well, also elevated, and this is pretty important, the military code of conduct, the law for many American citizens, perhaps some who might happen to be Trump voters who might not have known this. They now know, thanks to Donald Trump amplifying all of this, including especially the video that the Democratic lawmakers made, that you cannot carry out an illegal order. You must not carry out an illegal order. You must commit yourself to the Constitution, not the president. It's important that everybody knows that, and thank you to the president to make sure that this message is elevated and amplified to everybody who needs to know. John Hellman, thank you so much. And coming up on Morning Joe, we're now just 3 days away from one of the biggest shopping days of the year, but there are warning signs that consumers may be curtailing their Black Friday spending. CNBC's Dom Chu joins us on why shoppers may not be as eager to splurge this season. And a reminder that you can subscribe to our newsletter, The Tea, spilled by Morning Joe. Just scan the QR code right there on your screen. It'll be delivered to your inbox every day. Sign up for The Tea. We'll be right back.